Not only is the Second Amendment not outdated, it is more relevant to more people than it ever has been in our nation's history. But all of that progress rests on a knife's edge. If the Supreme Court were to reverse its opinion that the Second Amendment applies to all of us as individuals, as the founders clearly intended, every gun ban, every registry of gun owners, and every all-out confiscation scheme we can imagine will be knocking at our door.
I think we're at a dangerous time with the Supreme Court and the Second Amendment. The Heller decision was decided 5-4.
Heller reaffirms the fact that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms.
Every person who used the phrase bear arms used it to refer to the use of arms in connection with militia service.
I don't see how there's any contradiction between reading the second clause as a personal guarantee and reading the first one as assuring the existence of a militia. The two clauses go together beautifully.
Heller was the first time since 1939 where the Supreme Court really took on the Second Amendment squarely.
I mean, a lot of people said, is this really the first time that the Supreme Court is ruling on the Second Amendment? Well, the answer is yes. We've got a decision today from the highest court in the land. It's an individual right.
The 1939 case had been subject to a variety of different interpretations. That was United States versus Miller.
At that time, the theory was invented that the Second Amendment doesn't protect individual rights, it protects the power of states to maintain militias. And a lot of federal courts bought into that.
The court in 2008 decided to provide some clarity and said that, sure, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, the right of the people, is a normal American right that belongs to normal Americans.
Bottom line of Heller, the District of Columbia could not ban handguns.
The majority opinion was written by Antonin Scalia.
The Second Amendment refers to it as though it were a pre-existing right. It didn't say the people shall have the right, or even the government shall not take away arms, but rather the right of the people to keep and bear, as though it was a pre-existing right.
Antonin Scalia, unfortunately, is no longer with us, which means the court is 4-4. Were there a similar case to come up, it looks as if the court would be deadlocked.
And when the Heller decision came out, that was June of 2008, immediately thereafter lawsuits were filed against the Chicago and other Illinois jurisdictions that also banned handguns. The issue became there, does the Second Amendment apply to the states?
This case is really a sequel to the 2008 decision in which the court held that there is an individual right to own a gun in the home for self-defense, personal safety.
And in 2010, in the McDonald versus Chicago case, the court finally got around to issuing a decision about that in regards to the 14th Amendment. And it said, yes, the Second Amendment is a fundamental right, and therefore the 14th Amendment requires state and local governments to respect that right just as much as the federal government has to.
Had the makeup of the court been different, 5-4 the other way, the Second Amendment might have been just thrown into the dustbin of history.
With respect to the McDonald decision, we're talking really about the fact that your ability to own a gun, to have a gun in your house, is what's on the table.
When was the last time that the people of this country have been told something that you thought was a right is actually wrong, and we're taking it away from you?
The Supreme Court is already in a crisis of confidence with its uncanny ability to find essential rights that aren't spelled out within the Constitution. If it takes the next step and abandons rights that are expressly set forth in the Constitution, I think it sheds all pretense of legitimacy in the eyes of millions and millions of Americans.
What we'd be looking at in states like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, California, implementing laws that were unimaginable even 10 years ago, whatever they choose.
The biggest example I tell people with regards to the placement of an anti-gun justice on the Supreme Court is to look at what's happening right now in California. These are the things that are on the table if an anti-gunner is positioned or nominated and confirmed to the United States Supreme Court.
I don't think criminals would have decreased access to firearms if we banned the Second Amendment or if we all of a sudden said it's negated. Just look at what's going on in countries around the world that have done things like this. In 2012, Venezuela banned gun ownership for civilians.
Ante las cámaras, la policía de Caracas procede a la destrucción de decenas de armas. Es el arranque de una campaña con la que el gobierno pretende reducir la inseguridad.
Caracas, Venezuela, is now the most violent city in the world. Things haven't gotten better, they've gotten worse.
If you are allowed to have a gun in England, you have to have it locked up, you have to have the ammunition separate, it has to be disassembled, it cannot be accessible for self-defense. If you use a firearm in England for self-defense, it's a clear indication, prima facie evidence that you have committed a crime. And those people are commonly prosecuted for injuring criminals.
I hesitate to think of the consequences if the Supreme Court tells people they don't have this right.
You would see a lot of good, law-abiding, peaceful people turned overnight into criminals, either because they would refuse to comply with the harsher edges of the law, or because they would remain ignorant of them.
I just read a report that in Germany today they've got universal compelled registration of all firearms, and it's maybe 1 in 4 is registered. And that's a very law-abiding society.
If Heller and McDonald were overturned by the Supreme Court, I think that you would see a mass rejection of the ruling by a number of Americans across the country. There's a reason why Heller and McDonald were ruled in the way that they were the first time around.
The dumbest argument I've heard for gun control laws, or more gun control laws, is the idea that it would prevent the people we don't want to have guns from having them. It is dumb. It's dumb, 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 dumb.
Surveillance video shows 3 suspects entering the store and going right to the gun display cases.
In all, more than 200 guns stolen from around the Bay Area.
The man is seen clearly on the video smashing a glass case and taking pistols.
They're all going to the street where they're going to be sold on the street, and the overwhelming majority of them are going to be used in other crimes.
If the criminal is getting around every gun control that's in place right now, he is also going to get around a gun ban, an all-out gun ban. He's going to get around it. And when he does, the law-abiding citizen is going to be in a doubly worse position because it's going to be illegal for him to defend his life or for her to defend her life with a firearm.
He went from victim of an armed robbery inside his home to a possible suspect for killing one of the men who tied him up at gunpoint and robbed him.
You know, you might be able to own a gun and have it in your home, but if you can't have that gun physically on you in public, what do you do when, like in my case, when a stalker shows up at your work?
To again be just at the mercy of a government official to protect you or defend your rights, to not be able to make those kinds of decisions for yourself and your family, to say the best I can do is lay there and hope for the best because I don't have the choice to defend myself, that would be a huge step back.
An overturning of Heller means that I am going to be a sitting duck. It means I will be a soft target. And not just me, but millions of other law-abiding Americans. The principle behind the Second Amendment can never be outdated. The right of law-abiding citizens to defend themselves and their families against any violent injustice will be the foundation of any truly free society forever. The question is, how much longer will America be truly free? No government can give us our freedom, but any government can take it away. It is ours to use and ours to fight for, always.